We dealt with exactly the same case with one of my other listeners, Michael, who was also fined by district enforcement on behalf of Dacorum Borough Council for having a wild wee in exactly the same lay-by, albeit the lay-by you used was on the other side of the dual carriageway to the one that Michael had been fined on. But it's exactly the same spot. So obviously District Enforcement Limited, they obviously focus on those lay-bys on either side of the road, and they obviously have quite a good success rate in catching people having a wild wee. Now, when we dealt with this case with Michael, Nick Freeman, the lawyer known as Mr. Loophole, friend of this programme, was excellent in terms of providing us with the legal advice. And the real basis of Nick's argument with this was that urine cannot be classified as litter. It is not litter. Litter is something that remains after the person has disposed of something. So, for example, a crisp packet or, a sweet wrapper or something like that. If you discard that on the floor, that is litter because something remains when the person discards it. With urine, that's not the case. Urine soaks into the ground. Urine will be washed away when it rains. There is no remnant left from urine, and there is nowhere in the legislation that states that urine is classified as litter. So District Enforcement and Dacorum Borough Council were quite wrong to be using this piece of legislation to punish people for having a wild wee, or I presume in your case, disposing of urine that has been put into a jug. But let's find out, because Nick Freeman joins us again on the programme. Nick, good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming back on.
Good morning, Jonathan.
What is your legal view then on John? It would appear that chucking the urine from a jug into the bush is something that District Enforcement and Dacorum Borough Council felt was acceptable to fine him for.
Yeah, my first view is they've issued him with a fixed penalty ticket for throwing a cigarette stub out, and I wonder whether that's actually an accident on their behalf or whether or not that's strategic, because they appreciate the legal problem they've got in pursuing fines. And without wanting to escalate this unnecessarily, my suspicions are that was a deliberate act on their part. And in essence, it's a fraudulent act, because what they're doing is it's that they're obtaining money by misleading a member of public in relation to a criminal offence that he's committed. They've said he's thrown a cigarette butt out when in fact we're talking about urine. So potentially John could go to the police and make a criminal complaint. That's one option open to him against district enforcement, because I don't really understand how you can confuse urine with a cigarette stub.
Even though they now say they've cancelled that fine, they've reviewed the footage.
No, I understand that, but they initially issued a ticket. They were attempting, and he paid the money. So they've actually succeeded in getting money out of him, albeit that it's been refunded on a completely false premise. So what one avenue to John is to go to the police and say, look, they issued me with this ticket. As long as he hasn't thrown a cigarette stub out, and I've heard what he says, and he says he hasn't, and what we're talking about is urine. So that's one particular avenue John could pursue. Obviously, looking at the urine aspect of it, I mean, what's interesting, Jonathan, is there is actually no legal definition of what urine is. So what we do is we use common sense because of what litter is, I beg your pardon. As you've gone through the sort of things that it could be, and it's always something that is tangible and that it has to cause a defacement. And I can't see for the life of me how throwing some urine over a bush can ever cause defacement. And what's also interesting is in the legislation, if you actually look at Section 87 and 88 of the Environmental Protection Act, it does say if a person drops, throws or deposits anything or leaves anything so as to cause defacement on open land, it doesn't say they are committing an offence. It said they could be committing an offence. My view remains today the same as it was when we last spoke. Needing to go for a wee, as long as you don't discard the container, that can never be, under this particular piece of legislation, a litter. It cannot constitute litter. It doesn't deface anything, and it's not something that really is tangible. As you said, it soaks into the ground very quickly or it's washed away. and there's nothing left to show that it was there. So it's not polluting the environment in any way. It's just something that's there very, very temporarily. And as a matter of common sense, if you said to a judge or a court of law, and bearing in mind this is a criminal offence, let's make no bones about it. I know there are issues with fixed penalties, but if someone doesn't accept the fixed penalty, we're talking about criminal offences in the criminal court. The fixed penalty is a way of avoiding the criminal conviction, but it is a criminal offence. So what we have, Jonathan, you can imagine, everybody who pursues outdoor activities, whether it be walking their dog, whether it be walking in the countryside, cycling, golfing, whatever you do, how many times do you see people of both sexes, needing to go for a wild wee? Very, very often, discreetly, out the way, they need to respond to that call of nature. Are we going to criminalise everyone who enjoys outdoor pursuits? It will be complete and utter nonsense. So, in my view, it's not litter. It doesn't cause a defacement, and John has done absolutely nothing wrong. And he should resist the council. Did I understand you to say that he's already paid it?
Yes, sadly, because you were worried, weren't you, John?
Most definitely, Jonathan. Yeah, I just wanted that cleared up, basically.
Yeah. Well, the problem, John, now is you've paid it. You're probably not going to get that money reimbursed. If you want to take court action against it, it's going to be complex, it's going to be involved, and it's going to be expensive.
There is a slight glimmer of hope. There's a slight glimmer of hope, because I contacted Dacorum Borough Council ahead of the programme today just to explain that we would be having this conversation and that I would indeed be talking to you as well, Nick. Yeah. And they've come back with this statement. They say, "We can confirm that district enforcement contacted John to give advance notice that they would be issuing a new fixed penalty notice relating to littering, which was paid. The council sought legal advice in relation to its use of these powers for urination. Mm-hmm. If John wishes to appeal the fixed penalty notice, we will accept a late representation in this case and provide a refund if the appeal is successful. Right. A representation to district enforcement can be made in cases where the person has an issue with the conduct of the enforcement officer, the person would like to give reasons why an FPN should not have been issued, or there are medical grounds. For example, the medical condition has a direct effect leading to the behaviour or offence." So they are offering a lifeline, it would appear, to John to get his money back, Nick.
I would definitely pursue that. John, I don't know what age you are, and I don't want to sort of start asking.
Nick, you're welcome to ask. I'm 70.
You're right, okay. And, as a male approaching that age myself, I know that when you're outside or driving a car, one needs to urinate very regularly. I anticipate your prostate is enlarged.
Well, Nick, no, not
that's a medical condition. Sorry, John, that's a medical condition. Go on, you carry on, John.
Sorry, Nick, to butt in, but look, just to say, I did actually have a test, a blood test, and I am totally normal. I've got no issues at all, so I couldn't use it. Even if I couldn't use that as an excuse, and I wouldn't anyway.
Fine, okay. Well, so the way to pursue the appeal is to argue that actually what you did was perfectly normal, and it's not criminal. It's not causing a defacement. It's not actually litter. And there's no reason why you should be prosecuted. The statute says you have committed an offence, you could be committing an offence. And if you are committing an offence in doing this, then thousands and thousands of people, good, honest, decent, hard-working folk across the country are all being criminalised. Is that really what this statute is for? Absolutely not. The statute is to stop people throwing out Coke cans, coffee cans, crisp packets, cigarette stubs, cigar stubs, etc., etc. It's not responding to a call of nature. So I would definitely pursue it, and I'm very happy to speak to you after the show and give you some advice as to how to pursue an appeal, if you want me to do that, or I can liaise through Jonathan. But I would definitely take the opportunity offered by the council and pursue an appeal and see if you can get this set aside.
Well, Nick, I mean, thanks very much for for your interest. I would say it's not the £88. It is the principle. It's not getting the money back. It was just being put in a situation where I felt as though I was a criminal. You know, even in the van, I have what do you call it? I have a waste bin. You know, I don't throw anything out of the van. Yeah, so, you know, I can understand the council. I can understand what they're getting at. I mean, when you pull into Labour, some of the rubbish is absolutely a disgrace.
Yes, but that's totally different, isn't it? If somebody chucks a crisp packet or a McDonald's wrapper out of the window, then that of course is litter, and we would all expect our councils to be trying to clamp down on people doing exactly that. The argument with the wild we is that, as Nick says, everyone who ever walks their dog, for goodness sake, in the countryside from time to time will have suddenly found themselves in the middle of nowhere thinking, oh my God, I'm absolutely bursting for a wee. Let me go behind this tree in the middle of nowhere. Now, what Dacorum Borough Council seem to be arguing is that is classified as litter and is a criminal offence.
Sure.
And the problem, obviously, is there's no means of avoiding it. What do you do? Say, well, you can only walk until such time as you need to get to a loo. Well, obviously, we wouldn't be able to walk anyway. We wouldn't be able to enjoy the countryside because there aren't facilities. So it's just complete and utter nonsense. It is not the purpose of the legislation. And I would be happy quite legally to pursue this to the highest court in the land if they thought that this was really the right way to pursue people. Because it clearly isn't. It's a joke. And it's not a funny joke because it's a waste of time for everybody. Council should be concentrating on the serious matters like picking up litter. And getting hold of people who are actually depositing litter, but not people responding to calls of nature.
Nick, as always, thank you so much for your time. We will put you and John in touch off air. Let's pursue that appeal and let's see what happens, and we'll take it from there, okay?
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, John, and thank you to Nick Freeman, otherwise known as Mr. Loophole. It's